Welcome to Back to the Feature, where I watch the full movie so you don't have to. I'm your host, Dwayne, and today we're diving into Tremors from 1990. This monster movie has become a fan favorite over the years thanks to the hilarious performances by Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward. Let's dig into it. We meet Val and Earl, who are just a couple of handymen working in the tiny community of Perfection, Nevada. They bicker about chores like two guys allergic to responsibility. It's clear they want out, but have no clue how to make that happen. Along the road, they come across a new seismology grad student working out in the desert. Val was hoping for a penthouse beauty, but Rhonda is more on the nerdy side. When they leave, Earl makes fun of Val's over-the-top requirements for a potential mate. They return to town with its whopping population of 14 and head to Walter Chang's market, which is pretty much the hotspot in town. This is where we meet married preppers Bert and Heather doing some shopping. Heather is getting groceries while Bert picks up some new hollow point bullets. Back out in the desert, something is going on as the ground starts to shake, setting off Rhonda's monitoring equipment. As she loads up, something is moving under the surface and tracking her, but she gets in her truck just in time to escape whatever it is. Meanwhile, Earl and Val go about their day tackling various odd jobs while bitching about their current situation. First, it's picking up trash and then getting covered in raw sewage. The shit is the final straw for the boys, though. They've had enough and it's time for greener pastures. There's nothing that can stand between them and their new lives in the next town. Well, maybe there's something. On their way out of town, they spot a fellow resident named Edgar perched up on an electrical tower. They figure he got drunk, climbed the tower, and passed out. Val climbs up to help him, bitching and moaning all the way, and gets a big surprise. Edgar is up there taking a dirt nap, and the doc says he died from dehydration. Val and Earl decide it's weird, but not like change your day weird. So back on the road they go. They then spot a ranch full of shredded sheep looking like a Dexter crime scene. They start looking for Fred to make sure he's all right. There's no sign of him with the exception of his hat laying in the garden. When Val goes to pick up his hat, there's Fred. Dead.
What the hell's going on? What the hell is going on?
They jump in their truck and head back the way they came, even stopping to warn a couple of construction workers that there's a killer on the loose. The road crew ignores them and goes back to work breaking up concrete with a jackhammer when suddenly they hit something. That's not oil that's bubbling up, it's blood. The jackhammer and the worker are violently dragged away while the other guy gets killed under a rock slide. Val and Earl make it back to Walter's to call for help. The phone is just as dead as Fred and Edgar though, so they have to go to Bixby, their original destination, to get help. They don't get far when the road is blocked from the rock slide at the construction site. It's time to go when Earl spots the worker's hard hat covered in blood, so they're back in the truck once again. Earl loads his pistol while Val gets the truck stuck on something. It takes a few tries, but he finally gets them back on the road. Everyone's gathered at Walter's when Val and Earl return earlier than expected. Before they can explain their quick turnaround, they see something wrapped around the rear axle. Bert pries it off the truck to get a better look at the snake-like tentacle when Walter offers to buy it for a lump sum of $15. That night, the local doctor and his wife are enjoying a night under the stars when their generator disappears into the ground. The doctor gets sucked painfully into the ground while his wife tries in vain to save him. Think Jaws, but with dirt instead of water. She retreats to the safety of her car, but she's surrounded by more of the tentacles as they try to get in. The tentacles are smart though. Since they can't get into the car, they decide to pull the car into the ground. And down it goes. Back at Walter's, this is Bert's dream come true and what he's been waiting for his whole life. With the road out, a plan is hatched for Val and Earl to ride a couple of Walter's horses all the way to Bixby for help. The whole town watches as they ride off into their horizon. Along the way, they stop at the doctor's place to check on them. Since the car is gone, they assume they already left town. It's a fair assumption until they hear music coming from the ground. As they dig into the dirt, they find the front end of the station wagon. That's enough to get them to giddy up pronto. Anything that can take a whole car under like that is not something to be messed with. Unfortunately, they don't get very far before that something decides to mess with them. They're hauling ass across the desert when their horses get spooked and throws them off. One of the horses takes off while the other gets attacked by the tentacles. Val shoots at one of the tentacles, but that only draws attention to them. As the ground rises up beneath them, they finally get to see what they're up against. The ground opens up and a giant worm-like monster comes shooting out with the tentacles stretching out of its open mouth. They run like hell as the monster goes back under and burrows after them. They make it to the aqueduct and don't quite make the jump. But thankfully the monster slams into the concrete wall and brains itself. And even though it actually killed itself, Val takes the credit.
We killed it. Fuck you!
Right then, Rhonda shows up and they work together to break open the wall to get a better look at the monster. It's big, it's gross, and it smells. She figures out that it has no eyes and it's what's been causing all the seismic activity in the area. Based on her seismic charts, Rhonda determines there are 3 more worms, and sure enough, here they come. They barely make it to some large rocks before the tentacles can get to them. They're stuck overnight, and surviving becomes an Olympic event as they must pole vault their way across several gaps in the rocks to make it to Rhonda's truck. They make it back to Walter's and explain their predicament. While everyone else is fixated on the problem, Walter is more focused on what to name the creatures. And it finally hits him.
That's a Graboid!
Before they can finalize a plan of escape, the newly named Graboids attack and everyone scatters. Knowing that the Graboids rely on noise and vibrations to track them, everyone does their best to stay perfectly still. Like most monster movies, there's always a kid that ends up in danger. In this case, little Mindy is outside on her pogo stick, oblivious to the danger she's in because she's wearing headphones. Val races the Graboid and gets there first. The Graboid takes the pogo stick down but spits it out. Mindy and her mom make it into the house while Val jumps on top of the truck. To make matters worse, another Graboid shows up and grabs Rhonda, so now Val has to save her too. They're back in the store as they tend to their wounds. When the cooler starts making noise, a Graboid crashes through the floor and poor Walter is pulled down, forcing the others to climb to the roof. Everyone except Rhonda, that is. She's thrown out the window but makes it to the water tower next door. Meanwhile, Bert and Heather return to their compound not knowing what's happening in town. Bert radios the store and Val tells him to get up on the roof. Unfortunately, he left out the part about the vibrations because Heather is running a loud vibrating machine that gets the monster's attention. Val tells them to get to the roof and all they do is grab their weapons and stay in the basement. The Graboid bursts through the cinder block wall of their basement and then all you hear is a lot of gunfire off in the distance. Bert and Heather stand their ground because they have a full armory at their disposal. They just keep switching guns until the damn thing stops moving. It's a hell of a battle, but eventually it literally took an elephant gun. They radio back to town that they killed that mother humper only to be told congratulations.
Be advised, however, there are 2 more mother humpers.
They finally go to the roof with all their guns and their victory gives the others a brief moment of celebration. The remaining Graboids figure out they're hiding on the roof, so they start taking down the buildings. Nestor is knocked from his perch and tries seeking safety on a tractor tire, which turned out bad real quick. The Graboid yanks him straight through the tire like a magician pulling a tablecloth. Val and Earl come up with a plan to make a dash for the old bulldozer nearby. They're gonna need a distraction though, so Miguel suggests sending the rotting lawnmower out to draw them away. It's risky, but the Graboids are circling below like hungry diners waiting for a table. The plan is working. The mower is cruising on its own and the Graboid is in hot pursuit. Val jumps down from the roof and takes off for the bulldozer. Unfortunately, the mower tips over and the Graboid turns its attention to Val. He stops running just before the Graboid gets to him. Now he's frozen in place, surrounded by tentacles snipping at his feet. Earl can only watch as his best friend faces a potentially ugly death. But Rhonda comes to his rescue by letting water run out of the water tower. The water hitting the ground draws the Graboids back towards her, allowing Val the chance to get on the bulldozer and hook it to a trailer. Of course, now she's in danger as the Graboids go for her. Val is on the move in the slow-rolling rescue machine and starts scooping people off the roofs one by one. Once everyone has been rescued, they make their way to pick up Bert and Heather, who've been busy making pipe bombs. Of course, the Graboids are on to them, and they try to pull the rig down every time they come to a stop. Even after Earl explains that they've got to hurry, Bert and Heather still stand on the roof debating about which guns they should take. Once everyone is finally loaded, they get rolling once again. They're heading to the mountains because the rocks are the one place the monsters can't go. The bulldozer crawls towards the mountains with everyone packed in like a slow-motion escape parade. They relax a bit, thinking they finally outsmarted the monsters. The Graboids immediately decide to ruin that optimism. The bulldozer suddenly drops into a hidden pit that the Graboids dug, stopping their escape plan cold. As their trailer begins sinking like the Titanic, Bert gives the monster something new to chew on. It turns out the Graboids do not like the taste of explosives. Rhonda has Bert throw one of his pipe bombs toward a rock formation that will hopefully scare the monsters to go the opposite direction. This should give them a small chance to run for the safety of the rocks. The group sprints towards the nearest rocks, barely staying ahead of the tunneling monsters. Dust flies, people scream, and Val looks like he's regretting every life choice. They make it to safety, but just barely. Of course, now they're surrounded by the monsters, and the mountains are still too far away to make a run for it. And it looks like they might be stuck. Bert is pissed at Val and Earl because he thinks he would have been better off at his underground bunker. They agree to disagree. They realize the Graboids can be tricked with explosions, so they start fishing with dynamite. One monster takes the bait and gets blown up like a firecracker on the 4th of July. The victory is loud and very messy, but satisfying. One Graboid down, one to go. These monsters are smart though, and the final Graboid refuses to fall for the bomb on the fishing line trick and spits it back at them. It happens to land on the bag with the rest of the pipe bombs though. So screwed. Somehow they manage to dive for cover without anyone getting hurt. In the process though, Val, Earl, and Rhonda all got thrown far away from the rocks. In the middle of the chaos, Val managed to save one of the pipe bombs. They try to run back to the rocks but get cut off when the monster comes up in front of them. They freeze in place while the others on the rocks start making noise as a distraction. It doesn't fall for the same trick twice though, and it stays put. Eventually it sinks back into the ground, but Val isn't falling for it. He knows it's still there trying to trick them. Val takes off running, and he was right. The monster had been sitting just under the surface waiting the whole time. Earl takes off with him, but neither has the lighter. Rhonda does, so she takes off running too. All three are now sprinting away from the rocks out into open country. Turns out that Val does have a plan after all. There's a cliff nearby and they all stop right at the edge with nowhere to go and the Graboid coming towards them. They light the bomb with a short fuse, but Earl thinks Val screwed up when he throws it behind the monster. It explodes behind the Graboid, making it move even faster towards them. Earl and Rhonda leave Val just standing there. Val jumps aside at the last second and the Graboid rockets straight out of the cliff face like a giant angry torpedo. I guess it can't fly because it splatters headfirst into the ground, exploding like someone dropped a pumpkin off the Empire State Building. Val is officially the smartest dumb guy in town and everyone's hero. Back in town and all cleaned up, our heroes are plotting their new opportunity for fame and fortune. Rhonda and Val have an awkward exchange as they both can't admit they like each other. As she walks away, Val decides to chase after her and make his move. And it works. Words aren't his strongest suit. And that's Tremors, the movie that originally taught us that the floor is lava, the desert can be cruel, and dynamite solves most problems. Thanks for watching Back to the Feature, where I watch the full movie so you don't have to. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe before you click away. If you've got another 80s or 90s movie you want covered, drop it below in the comments and we'll dig into it next.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.